Image number 22 is titled Akhenaton, Nefertiti, and Three Daughters. The time period for this is New Kingdom, but we also, really important here is we need to know this is from the Amarna period, and this is 18th dynasty. And you have the years, and this is carved from limestone. All right, what Egyptian conventions do you see here? That means what are you seeing here that we've already seen in previous Egyptian artworks? What traditions are you seeing here that have continued? So a couple observations. There's a combination of text, which we know are hieroglyphics, text combined with images. And then we're also seeing that awkward composite pose, also known as that twisted perspective, right? Where the shoulders are facing forward and we're seeing the faces in profile. All right. And then if we compare this to Menkaure and Queen, right? What do you see now that is defying, going against these conventions, right? We have that very idealized pharaoh to an unidealized. So very important here, this is not an idealized pharaoh. So it's the pharaoh and his wife. So on the left you have Akhenaton, and then on the right you have Nefertiti, but he looks androgynous. They both could look androgynous. Very curvilinear, very soft forms, not that hard chiseled stone that we're seeing in the stiff posture of Menkaure and Queen. Very thin arms and shoulders. Also, they all have those elongated heads and necks. So the content, what it's depicting a very different scene. So it's this intimate tenderness, a glimpse into family life, very informal, as opposed to the regal stance of Menkaure and Queen. All right, so we're going to compare this Amarna period, which is a very short period of time in the New Kingdom, compared to the Old Kingdom. So this is Khafre. It looks just like Menkaure, right? Very similar. So what's happening is Akhenaton becomes the pharaoh and he changes the whole religion, right? They used to believe in a pantheon of gods, all these different gods. And he is saying, no, we're just going to worship one God. So while he's changing the religion, he's also going against the artistic conventions with this period. So this artistic revolution is happening at the same time, right? It's coinciding with this religious revolution. He's going to change. He even moves the capital. He changes his name. He changes what the people are worshiping. And then the art style is also depicting this change. All right, so if you look at your cover page for Egypt, so this is where I'm talking about you have pre-dynastic, right, with the Palette of King Narmer. You have Old Kingdom, and then Middle Kingdom, and then New Kingdom. But in that New Kingdom is like a, 13-year period called the Amarna period. And then after Akhenaton, it goes away. It's just with him. So our image number 22 is the only one that has this distinguished Amarna period. So it looks like it's spelled wrong down there. So he is the ruler. He is the pharaoh. He is the only one that can now communicate with this god. He moves the capital and proclaims monotheism. What a rebel. All right, overall, this is pretty small in size. So for function, it would have been in a household altar, a shrine for private worship. All right, for formal characteristics, the way this is made, right? Think about for form, the ingredients. This is made by carving into the stone in something called relief. So we have different types of relief. This artwork on the left, this is a Roman artwork, the Ludovisi battle sarcophagus. And this is carved in high relief, right? So these dark shadows are really carved out. Things are kind of popping out of the surface. And then you've got the anthropomorphic stele, which is low relief, also called bas relief. And then you've got the Nefertiti, Akhenaton, Nefertiti, and Three Daughters, which is sunken relief. So it's a different type of relief we haven't seen yet. So this is where the lines are carved away. Instead of carving the background to have the lines pop out, like we're seeing in the anthropomorphic stele, you're carving the actual lines themselves. So this is creating strong shadows. emphasizing the curvilinear and elongated features. All right, so here is another artwork from the Amarna period, and we should be able to compare the two. So what features are you seeing that are similar in here to Akhenaton, Nefertiti, and Three Daughters? We should have been able to point out this giant sun or disk, right, with these rays coming down. We're seeing this in both. So for content, this is what's being depicted. So what we're going to say is you have the king and the queen sitting on cushioned stools. What other artwork can you relate that back to? I was thinking of Hammurabi, and you've got the god Shamash sitting on the stool with his feet up on a pedestal, right? Same thing here. They are playing with their daughters who have elongated shaved heads. The king is lovingly patting one daughter on the head while she goes to kiss him. The youngest is perched on Nefertiti's shoulder right here. The oldest is sitting on mother's lap, pointing at father. This depicts the fidgety behavior of children and this loving involvement of parents. We don't need to write that, but it's just kind of part of the scene. All right, what we need to know is where is this new religion? Where is this monotheism evident in the piece? And that was what I was pointing out earlier. That's the disc or that sun on the top. So Aton is the god, and this is being depicted as the sun disc with rays. This symbolizes their devotion to the new monotheistic ideas. So we need to be able to recognize that visual language. Coming down from Aton on the bottom of these rays coming out, you have the Ankh. That's an Egyptian symbol of life. So if you notice, they're right here going to Nefertiti, almost breathing life into her. And then the same for Akhenaton. But here you don't have the Ankhs. So it's really just where it connects with the people, right? So it's giving them the breath of life. When we go to the Sistine Chapel and we look at Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel paintings, you have God sparking life into Adam. Just like this little baby is here. All right, so again, this would be a great artwork where we look at it and we talk about how can you compare this to Akhenaton, Nefertiti, and Three Daughters? What are we seeing of the Amarna style here that is similar? So we should be able to compare these. These three artworks too kind of embody this Amarna style. And this is Nefertiti, his wife. All right, just a quote. So 3,000 years ago, the rebel pharaoh Akhenaton preached monotheism and enraged the Nile Valley. So they tried to wipe this out after he died or after he was no longer pharaoh. Less than 100 years after Akhenaton's death, Moses would be preaching monotheism on the bank of the Nile River to the Israelis. So this idea of a single God, once the radical belief of an isolated heretic, is now embraced by Muslims, Christians, and Jews throughout the world. What a rebel. All right, again, this is just for a comparison. So this is something we would be doing in class, a 5-minute quick write, discuss all of these Egyptian statues by giving examples of how they're funky cha-cha, how their function, their context, what's happening at the time, content, what it's depicting, how did all of that help determine the form? Why are the artists depicting these people the way they look? Why do they look like this? So I have the answers here, but if you want to pause it, think about it, you can. So seated scribe is depicted more naturalistic because he is not as important as the pharaoh. He is not a ruler. So he is more naturalistic, more curvy. Akhenaton is an example of the Amarna period where he was depicted more naturalistic than other pharaohs. He's also changing the religion at the time. Therefore, the art is changing along with it. Queen Hatshepsut is wearing a beard to stay with the artistic conventions of portraying pharaohs with beards. She is in a kneeling position, holding offering jars to a god. And then Menkaure and Queen are both united with the stone, striding forward. They are idealized and eternal, as pharaohs were considered gods in human form. That is all.